It's been one of those moments that I think all of those little touches are important for Charles as well as for the nation.
How significant was it that Prince George and Princess Charlotte also participated in the processional? Was that surprising? And do you think that was ever a tough decision for William and Kate to make?
I think it was. I think that, the palace itself didn't announce that the young royals were attending until relatively late on. Right. And I think the decision was being made. I think for children of that age who might not quite understand what's going on or be able to sit through something so long and so formal, it must be quite a difficult decision to make. And I think Catherine made a statement that George understands what's happening. Some of the younger royals, the younger siblings, perhaps less so, perhaps a little too young to quite get there. So I think it was one of those moments that will be looked on. One of the big iconic things that we remember from Princess Diana's funeral was William and Harry walking behind the coffin. And that's one of those iconic photographs or video clips that everyone remembers from that funeral. And it was a moment that really forged our first early perception of those two young boys who are now, men and they've grown up and they've grown up in that shadow. But I think now seeing the younger royals take this kind of role just indicates a bit that they have moved up through the line of succession. They will be more of a focus as they grow up. I think William and Harry have both been made very clear that they don't want their families to be very focused, very part of the media circus, and they want them to have a childhood and a life, and they want them to be slightly detached from what goes on in terms of royal procedure and things. But we will see them, I think, at state occasions, and we'll see them at events, particularly perhaps George, who one day will be doing the same thing. And so again, his preparation started, I guess, from the moment he's born, and will continue and will slowly increase as he gets closer to that fateful day. But I think William and Catherine have really taken their responsibilities as parents quite seriously. And they've asked that question first, I think, before that of duty and the other things, which means that, they made that decision close to the time. Once they perhaps weighed it over, I wouldn't be surprised if they'd even asked the children themselves if they'd like to go. I think they love very much their family, and I think they take that as their first priority.
On the coffin was a letter from Prince Charles. The flowers that were laid across the coffin were also in remembrance of Prince Philip. What do you think? Why was that so important for Prince Charles to do? And is that part of tradition as well, that a letter is always on top of the coffin? Because we saw that on Prince Philip's as well.
I think the letter was a poignant moment, and I think it reminds us that Charles is grieving for his mother. It must be incredibly difficult. Anyone who's lost a parent can maybe sympathise. But at the same time, he's been thrust into the limelight, and he knows that there are cameras watching him every moment, every reaction, every single thing he does is being remembered, recorded, and will be analysed and responded to. So it's a pressure cooker of different things. And also you have this emotion as well that also needs to be thought about and space to grieve. Right. So I think it's been probably a very difficult time, and particularly he's now got so much more responsibility. He has to lead the nation through this farewell, and that's something that we've seen at moments where Charles has had tears in his eyes. We've heard his voice break a little bit in certain speeches, and there's a clear, huge amount of love and respect for Elizabeth that you can see go through all of that. And I think when I was watching the funeral, I did see at one point just a little bit of you could almost call it a smile when everyone was sort of saying farewell and thank you. And I think that a bit of pride, I think, at his mother and the great things she's done. And I can imagine it's probably quite daunting to step into such big shoes, but Charles has had a lot of preparation and all of these things, these chances to say goodbye. I think they bring an incredible amount of closure, and they do help in this process. So it's been one of those moments that I think all of those little touches are important for Charles as well as for the nation.
For more news content and exclusive interviews, make sure to hit the sub, like, and bell button down below, and visit usmagazine.com.